Start recording now. Oh boy, is this our first one technically recorded of 2021?
Yeah, you're right. I think it is.
Yeah. Well, then we got a really fun one here for our first one of the year. We going into this new year, some crazy stuff happening over this week. I don't know if our guest has been following what was going on in the United States, but we'll introduce him in a moment. Keegan, how are you doing?
I mean, 2021 is really just being like, I'm going to start off on a really crazy note.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping myself distracted but informed.
Yes. So this week our topic is one that Keeban. Hey Keeban.
I'm gonna be
now
Keeban now.
You're Keeban now. Brought up and before this, as Max was going to join us, but unfortunately with his wife being pregnant and being sick a bit, he wasn't able to join us this week. But he wanted me to tell you, Keegan, that you only picked this so that you could talk about Lisboa and Pax Pamir.
I mean, that's not the only reason.
So this week we got games that integrate culture, whether that's doing a good job or a bad job. We'll discuss and find out who has that idea on what game. But let's take a moment to introduce our fantastic guest, Shem Phillips of Garfield Games. I'm sure most people know you and have played some of your games. I got some here so that you can't really see my messy ass desk back there. Designer of such games as Raiders of the North Sea, Architects, Paladins, Viscounts of the West Kingdom. Many games, many awesome games, ones we've talked about quite extensively throughout some of our episodes. So Shem, we are real thrilled that you came to join us here.
I'm very honored to be here.
Yeah, so let's get to know you a bit. Tell us about the very first memory you have playing board games.
Wow. My memories, back when I was a kid, probably, I don't know how young I was, but things like going on caravan trips with the family and playing card games back of the caravan, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we played a game called Coon Can, which is like a spin on Rummy, I think.
Okay.
That's all I knew of Rummy back then when I was a kid. And we played Cluedo, we played Monopoly, Scrabble, or Clue, I think it's called in the States. So, I think Cluedo was the one that I enjoyed the most as a kid. I liked the deduction of the game and things like that, which I guess is what I enjoy deduction in games even now. So I guess it's carried over a bit. And it's, it's still a fairly well-designed game for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that would have been probably 6 or 7 years old, I guess, maybe. I honestly can't remember. I'm getting so old now, I forget things.
Okay. And would you how do I phrase this? Is there any particular person that you would be like, I contribute you to being the one that really got me into games?
So I had a friend, still a friend, my mate Steve. Yeah, so he's moved to Australia since in the last few years, but I think I was working on a game that I was designing. It was like a very light family kind of game, and then he showed me Settlers of Catan, which we played one Sunday afternoon, which I loved, and then I rushed out to I went to our local toy store and just picked up Carcassonne and Family Business purely on the art. I was like, this looks kind of like Catan.
Yeah.
I like that game. I'd never played hobby games before. So I got there, and then I think for a good 6 months, we just thrashed Carcassonne every day, twice a day.
Dang.
And we'll get friends around and play Family Business, which is up to 6 players of just lots of take that. And then we bought Ticket to Ride Europe and thrashed that every day, and then just slowly got into the hobby that way.
Okay.
So he's to blame pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And do you still have that copy of Carcassonne?
Oh,
your
yeah,
collection?
definitely. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And my I think the tiles are disgusting. The boxes, but even my Ticket to Ride, the cards like used to be white on the side. Now it's just brown, and yeah, you can never sell it.
I mean, come on, who would? There's, I mean, for me, Carcassonne was one of my first board games that I bought for my collection, and yeah, that one's never leaving. I have organizer for it, and I love upgrading the pieces, and yeah, I don't think I'd ever get rid of one of those early games. I think it's like Scythe and
Too much nostalgia, right?
yeah, exactly. Keegan, what's your? I don't think we ever talked about what was one of your first games that you got in your collection.
My real first two games I got in my collection, besides my friend and I splitting Settlers of Catan and one of the expansions, and we played the hell out of those for a while. I bought Shadows over Camelot and Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Okay.
And since though, those have both left my collection. But the one that is one of my like early that I've talked about before, it's like my early game that really got me to fall in love with the hobby that I'm never getting rid of is Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah. Okay. Have you played the Castle of Tuscany yet?
No, I haven't.
I haven't.
I mean, I prefer Burgundy, but Tuscany's not bad. It's worth a try. Kind of pares down it quite a bit, but still has some of that similar feel to it. Interesting artwork. But you brought up Shem that the you said, was it Catan or Ticket to Ride? The cards are all like brown on the side. What are your opinions on sleeving cards?
So I generally don't sleeve. The only thing I actually have sleeved is my copy of Citadel's, the original copy, because we played it so much that you could tell which one was the, I think it's been so long, the priest or the abbot, whatever he is. But you could tell like on the scratch marks on the back of the card that was that card. So
yeah.
Luckily in that version I had, it had I think it's called the Dark City expansion or something. So I managed to get those cards, which we never used because we didn't like the powers. We like tucked two cards together in one sleeve, so the back's like nice and pretty again. So I was able to salvage the game. Yeah.
Okay.
We use sleeves heaps for prototyping because it's just easier. But I don't really care for it in my games unless it's like a game like Citadel's or something where the back of the card has to be like pristine, perfect for kind of social deduction games, I guess, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'm a big sleever just because I want them to stay as clean as possible and pristine as possible with all of it. And I actually just recently got the big box for Raiders, and I like the sleeves are nice in that. I don't know. Do you have your own? Do you have a copy of it of your own?
I don't have a copy of it.
You don't got it. That's funny. Yeah, they were pretty nice. So I was like, oh, it's a nice touch that came with the box.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm a pretty big sleeve. Particularly games that have the cards that you are holding on to a lot are the ones that I will definitely do. I know I have. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I had another question I was going to ask after that one. Now I'm spacing on it. Keegan, what you got?
Yeah, I got one. Shem, I'm noticing some instruments in the background. How long have you been playing music? Is that something you kind of do to help, like if you're in a creative block? Is music a good outlet for you?
I think music like predates my love for board games. Yeah. So I got into playing drums when I was about 6, 7 or 8, and then broke my arm twice in the space of 6 months.
Oh my god. The same arm?
The same arm, yeah.
Because of drumming?
No. Just
no.
as kids do, you know. And then we moved away, so I didn't have my drum teacher. But I attempted acoustic guitar when I was maybe like 10 or 11 and couldn't even hold like the chords, so I gave up. And then I think when I was about 13 or 14, my mum's like, what do you boys want? Me and my brother. He wanted a camera for taking photos, and I was like, I want a bass guitar. So she got me a cheap ass Samick bass and amp, and taught myself how to play punk songs on that.
Okay.
And then been pretty much playing various forms of guitar since then. So that's like over 20 years, I guess. Lots of sort of rock bands or metal bands, hardcore bands, that kind of stuff.
Do you have any favorite groups right now?
Oh, Dance Gavin Dance, one of my favorites. If you know
I'm with you on them. They're great.
Yeah.
New Zealand.
Love the grooves. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Are they from New Zealand?
Who?
Protest the Hero.
Haven't heard of them.
They're a metal band.
I'm so out of the scene. I haven't played live shows in like 5 years.
they've been around for quite a while, but they're more metal. I don't know if that New Zealand. I don't know if they're actually from New Zealand, but okay.
If you like Dance Gavin Dance, check out A Lot Like Birds. One of Dance Gavin Dance's old singers was in that band. They're solid. They're so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of good bands. Like I think it's under the what's the guitarist name? Swan.
Swan, yeah, the Swan Records label.
Yeah, so lots of his bands are good. I like what are the ones we listened to lately? Can't remember the names. Yeah, it's a lot of the old singers of Dance Gavin Dance make the spin-off projects, or one guitarist does something with someone else, and
yeah.
I think it's called Dreamcore or like something like that. The genre, I never knew it was called that. But
that whole album, that whole label is like super incestual in a good way, where like they're all in each other's bands at all times, like they're all doing something together. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is our side segment of music. Board gamers that do music. But no, okay, they were from Canada. I don't know why I'm thinking New Zealand, but
true. we're like so Canada is to America as New Zealand is to Australia, so
yeah.
Similarity there.
Canada's not even close to New Zealand either. I don't know why I thought New Zealand. I mean, maybe because they have like this song for Newfoundland, but I don't know how close Newfoundland is even to, if it's even nearby.
It's not near us, that's for sure.
Okay, I have no idea then what. Okay, passing on that. Okay, what would you say is your most played board game mechanic?
Oh, most played board game mechanic. That's a tough one. I mean, I know my favorite mechanisms are like multi-use cards and set collection.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, people know me for worker placement, but I don't know if I always thrash worker placement games either. So I just like games to have interesting decisions to make. You know, like and can leave you kind of your brain kind of burning a bit while you're playing. So the mechanisms, I guess, are just supporting that experience for me. But for Euro games, it's usually like I like games with a lot of cards because you can do lots with cards. I still enjoy dice games though, and I enjoy just more story-driven games. So I don't know. I most played game last year is probably playing what's it called the game. You know the game.
The game, yeah.
I'm playing it on my phone. That's like probably the most played game for me last year. So
that's right.
Speaking of multi-use cards, I just picked this up yesterday.
Wait a second, I thought you had it.
I did. I got rid of it, but then our game store got it and all the expansions, and so I'll just buy the whole bundle. So I have all of it.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with Ginkopolis?
I haven't played it, but that cover's always intrigued me. Like it's been out of print for so long, and it's coming back soon now. But
yeah, they're doing a reprint. We've talked about it quite a bit. It's an interesting tile-laying, multi-use card game. That's probably been one of our top games for a while.
Yeah, it's definitely worth playing. It's super good.
Yeah, is it going to be a Kickstarter thing? Do you think, or
Keegan would know? I don't know as much
about what about it.
Because they're doing the reprint soon. Is it like a straight to retail, or is it going to be?
Yeah, it's straight to retail. I think the last I thought I saw like March or April it should be out.
Oh, cool. Okay, March or April.
So pretty soon.
Yeah,
I think as long as there's no craziness with I know like shipping has been a nightmare and there's like congestion at ports and everything. So as long as there's no more delays with that, it should be out pretty soon.
Hopefully. I mean,
yeah.
We still haven't gotten the Kanban notification when in December it was saying it was already in Chicago, but okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Oh God, I am doing well today. My brain is really working. I had a question and now I forgot it again.
I got one for you then. Shem, since you brought up that you really enjoy deduction games, and I know we weren't going to do a lot of designer talk stuff, but is there a deduction style game that you would like to make? Have you been thinking about making some more deduction style games?
I would definitely want to put deduction in games in the future, for sure. I don't think I ever see myself designing like a pure deduction game, like any of the kind of social ones, or I haven't even played Mystery at the Abbey, but I know that's like kind of like Pluto version 2.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy. Okay, one I can't handle is cryptid, because my brain just melts and I hold all the information in my head.
I love that game so much.
Yeah, Sam McDonald, who I co-design a lot with, he loves it, but I think he's a much more intelligent guy than I am. So again, he can retain that information. My brain just starts like withering away. I'm like, I need a piece of paper to write this down. So I would love to have some kind of deduction mechanisms in games. I have tried to work some in some of my old projects, but they actually got stripped out because it just wasn't working. But yeah, there's something about it. It's satisfying to like whittle down to this final kind of answer that you're looking for. Yeah, it's satisfying.
Have you played any of the Sherlock Holmes consulting detective games?
Yeah, we played through, my wife and I, about half of the first one. But they're just so insanely hard that
they're really hard.
Yeah, like the solutions are like, we did not see that there was going to be something in a lion that, it was bizarre.
It's perfect date night. Perfect date night. Yeah. It's really fun.
It is. The time just disappears. So.
Oh yeah, we played our first case, and I think we were sitting down. We played it for like 4 hours because we took pieces from other games and like were marking them on the map for like, this is where this house is, and then we would do voices for all the characters. It was,
of course you guys did.
A lot of
fun. So you mentioned you play with your wife, and we've actually talked about this with quite a few people, and I always find it interesting. Is your wife a big board game player?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
So it's always like finding those games are good. So we've done all the exit games to date with just the two of us, because we enjoy like a good hour to 2 hour kind of just sit down and do a puzzle together kind of thing. But when I first got into gaming, it was my wife and I that thrashed like Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride, and we thrash them. But now we have children, so it's a bit different. You can't just play a game on the floor for like 2 hours. So.
Yeah. That's it. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because we had like a whole conversation about like just couples and like ones that they really game together and both do it, or ones that like Max and his wife, where his wife doesn't even really want to play games, and it's interesting to see how some couples end up like gravitating towards each other, or just like one gets the other. Like, have you been have you tried over the years to get her to be more into them?
Nah, I usually just say like, if we do play a game, like what game do you want to play? So, but often be Ticket to Ride or something like that. That would, because she doesn't want to learn all the new rules for other games. So, which is fine. Like I do all my heavy gaming and more like the Euro-y stuff with Sam or with other friends locally. So which happens to usually be guys, but it's it's just the way it is with our group, I guess. But I know that a lot of our local friends, their wives often play games with them, especially like legacy games, that kind of stuff, where it's more like it's almost like a project you're doing together. So it's good for that. But just socially sitting down to play a game is like not really her thing. So we watch lots of crime shows or like sci-fi TV shows and that kind of stuff. That's our jam.
Okay. I got to ask, because one, I'm loving the beard going on. Have you been watching Vikings? Do you watch that show at all? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is it still going? I'm not even sure.
The last season, the final part of it, the last of the 6th season, just came out on Amazon. So I've been binge watching, and nice.
Speaking of Vikings, and I know Ryan, you've seen it, but Shem, have you seen the Witch or the Lighthouse from Robert Eggers?
No.
His newest movie that he's making is a Viking themed movie.
All right.
So I think I think Willem Dafoe was supposed to be in it again. I don't know, but like all of his movies have been amazing so far, so I'm excited to see what he does with Vikings.
It's like the black and white one that came out.
The Lighthouse was the black and white one, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but it looks interesting. Yeah.
Oh man,
it's weird.
Doing
it's really weird.
Yeah. doing a Viking themed movie in like shooting it like Lighthouse.
As long as Willem
weird.
Dafoe's in it farting again, I'm happy.
Great.
Another side tangent really quick.
We go on a lot of those. But let's go ahead and chat some board games with culture that find a way to bring culture into it. I guess, I mean, we can maybe start with one of your, Shem, one of your newest games, and I'm not up to date fully on it, with Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah.
How, I don't know how much you can divulge and say how much did you kind of think about and try to bring in that like period of Roman Empire in Britain at that time?
So it's an easy one for me because I didn't design it, so it's all done. But Bobby Hill, who's the designer, he actually is British. Okay. So we published it obviously, but yeah, he's a local friend. He actually lives probably like I can run to his house if I can run in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, but anyway, he's British, living in New Zealand. So he's walked along Hadrian's Wall, and he's a big kind of history nerd. He loves getting into theme for his designs. Like he just digs into as deep as you can go with theme, which is cool. So he did tons of research. Everything's there for a reason in the game. It's kind of like there's the idea is that you're like building up this wall as the Picts are attacking, not because the Picts are really a threat to the Roman Empire, but it's like a show of their strength. So you're doing that, and then there's 2 sheets in the game. And on the other sheet, there's I think there's 5 different areas of society. Like you've got the patricians, and you've got the entertainers, and the merchants, and that kind of stuff. And each of those 5 areas have 1 or 2 mini games that you can play in the roll and write kind of style. So he made all those little like mini games kind of feel different and kind of I guess what's the word, kind of breathe life into the mechanics through the theme a bit. So yeah, he did tons of research. He's a bit of a book nerd as well, I think. So he there's even some things with the final testing we did publicly. Someone's like, we had I think it was phalanx for the 3 phalanxes that you got to try and build up. And someone just brings up like, I'm pretty sure that's a Greek word, not a Roman word. So,
yeah.
Yeah, we changed it to cohort, which is Roman. So little things like that. There can always be little things that slip through that you just doesn't cross your mind. Even when I took Bobby's, he had like a A4 sheet thing going on. I took his design, made it myself, basically with like my kind of graphic design style, and gave it to my brother to then do the final version of. And straight away, my brother was like, you're using Greek helmets there for your icons. I have no idea the difference between a Roman and Greek helmet, but at least, yeah. My brother did the art. He's also a bit of a theme nerd as well, so he just loves digging into like what was actually there and all that stuff. So there's always a chance for mistakes, but we do our best. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, it's cool that you guys were. It's cool that you guys were checking in on like all that detail though, and like willing to like hear that and being able, yes, we'll change it if this is more accurate. That's really cool.
Yeah. You don't want to put out something that's like, yeah, it's wrong. But sometimes you just don't know and it doesn't cross your mind. I got pulled up on the cover of Red Scythia. They got a stirrup, which like apparently didn't exist back then. It was like a few hundred years later, and we're like, oops, it's too late now. The game's printed, and we got pulled up for like the armor on paladins. But I'm just in my mind, it's like our medieval stuff while it's set in history, it's very fantasy.
Yeah.
So we're like, they did badass guys who time travel back 200 years and now have shield armor. So. Yeah.
Which funny because I thought Romans, they were also called phalanxes.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure they were.
I think there's a lot of bleed over between Romans and Greeks.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love Roman Empire. Yeah, and I guess I find that some of the games tend to be a little bit more successful when they've actually done more of the research behind it. and found a way to bring it in. And like, so one of the big games that I thought did a good job was Gugong. I was thinking about and thinking of like this, the whole time period, and maybe Keegan, you can talk a bit more to it, of this idea of like, they're actually like trading favor between the powerful, and that's the whole aspect behind this game of like almost like this corruption, this idea of like paying off bribes or doing bribes in order to get favors and among the emperor.
Yeah, because like the theme of the game. Shem, have you played Gugong yet?
Yeah, I have.
It's a very good game, and like the whole mechanic of the cards is amazing. I think that's a really clever mechanic, and like Ryan was saying, the theme is great because there was an emperor who allowed bribing, and then the emperor died, and then I think his son took the position. He was the emperor, and he was like, no more bribing. This is corrupt and horrible. And the way they went around the bribing was, you can give me a present and I'll do something for you. So it wasn't a bribe, it was a gift. So it was just like just the wording is what got him away with it. And I think that whole idea is implemented super well in the game. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think like Brian was saying too, I think doing the research for games, especially something that is more historical context, I think that can really help lead to like mechanic and design implementation too, not just to like paint something over what you already have, but it really help you come up with some new ideas you maybe never thought of.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I always find that often like when we start designing, we start with like the setting. Like, I mean, our West Kingdom stuff's it's already done for us. Like what's going to be in medieval France, it's obvious. Yeah. But for like the Raiders of Scythia, for that one, I was like, well, I want to make another game about raiding, but so I just did research. Who else raided? Like who else was savage like the Vikings were? And then stumbled upon the Scythians. And as we got into that, I looked into their culture and what they're known for. A lot of it's like unknown, but things like they used to drink kumis, which is like a fermented mare's milk, which was like apparently got drunk in it, but it's very low alcohol. But they used to drink it out of like the skulls of their enemies. Like they were just so savage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
Things like that. And they were known for riding on horseback and shooting behind them as they were riding. So things like that. I was like, well, there's got to be horses in the game, you know.
Yeah. And
then things like they didn't really want to die in battle. Like the Vikings wanted to die gloriously in battle. So it just made sense that there can't be a Valkyrie track in Scythia because, I mean, they were unafraid to die, but they didn't want to, you know. So, yeah, things like that. Just little subtleties I think is important.
Which, actually, like, that's a good point that I was going to actually, like, bring up another game. I don't know if it's Valhalla. It's like a card game. It was a new one. It was on Kickstarter. It's a bit more fantasy because it kind of talks about the gods and going to Valhalla, but it's like this idea of like they're going to battle, but they're trying to actually die. Like you want the soldiers to die so that they can go to Valhalla as a warrior, and they kind of like if they don't win the battle, they don't get to die. They don't get this glory. So it's just like it's interesting like how you can take there's some of that. It's mostly fantasy, all the mythology stuff, but to actually like take this idea of like they want to die, like this is part of the culture, and like that's literally what you're doing instead of just like sending them to war. No, the whole thing is actually sending them to Valhalla, and that's how you get your glory, your points throughout the game. I thought it worked really well for it. Keegan.
Yeah, so
go for it.
Shem talking about like people pointing out like this is incorrect made me think about a game that I didn't even put on my list initially because it's not even out yet. But there's a game coming out from Cranio Creations called Golem. Have either of you looked into this one yet?
No.
I think Ryan, I talked to you briefly about it. So Golem is taking a lot of inspiration from the Golem Legend of Prague. So it's a lot of like Jewish historical and like folklore things implemented into the game. And the longest thread on the BGG page is cultural misrepresentation. So the game looks interesting, and the art looks great, and it's the same team made Grand Austria Hotel, so it's probably going to be a solid game. But someone also pointed out that on the front of the box, there's Hebrew on the box, and it was written backwards, so they asked them to flip it, which they did. But there's a lot of talk about, like, you do a specific action in a synagogue, but the way the action works is really misleading to what an actual synagogue means to people in real life. Yeah. So it's, I think a good question to ask then, thinking about that, is what do you think is a line to not cross, in a way, where how much are you able to take like your artistic liberties with the culture and implement it to what you want it to use it for, versus you should take the art, like the culture, and actually apply it and respect it? Not saying they're not being respectful, but like maybe they're changing it a bit too much.
There's definitely lines you shouldn't cross. I think it's more in modern times, I think. So especially like after colonialism, there's like a white person shouldn't make a game about like culture in a country that's been colonized, because it's just bad. Going back in time, I don't know, it's a bit different because there's a lot of unknowns. I think that's why I like the medieval Dark Ages kind of setting, because you just don't know.
Right.
But for things like that, like the Jewish one you're talking about, I don't know, that sounds like a very specific theme. So you'd think the designer would have been passionate about it and would have done their research. So that one's a little bit confusing. There's often times where a publisher might choose a theme and they'll just slap it on and they haven't done their research. But I think in most cases, most designs come from like some kind of desire from the designer to make this certain game about this certain thing. So they would likely do their research. You'd hope so, at least. If you're that passionate about making a game about something, you want to look up about it. But I mean, Jewish culture is always going to be probably also a little bit hard to navigate, because obviously it's, even though a lot of the history is old, this the Jewish people are still here today. So and they get knocked down a lot. So you don't want to screw up their areas as well.
It almost feels like the line is almost like where the mechanics come in. If the mechanics are like somehow based off the culture, then it really should be a lot of research and making sure that you're actually understanding what these things mean to the culture and that you're actually representing it right, because that's like the whole basis of the game. Whereas if it's more of just a theme, something interesting that you can kind of warp a bit, as in that case, then maybe you could take some of that liberty and go a little bit differently with it, as long as you still maybe respect it, do the research, just kind of like understand and talk with people of the culture just to get a little understanding, and then like take then the liberty. But I feel like if it becomes such a heavy part of what you're doing in the game, it should probably represent it as accurately as you can.
I mean, at one point I was considering doing a game about Māori culture here in New Zealand, and I was like, I know lots of people who are very much involved in the local Māori communities, but even then, if I asked them and talked to them and consulted them, even then it'd be too much for me to do one, being a white guy in New Zealand. So it's just there's certain lines that you can't cross. But I mean, do your research, and ask people if you're not sure, I guess. I think in a lot of cases it's like, be humble to accept that you might have crossed the line, and then apologize and then change it.
I need to look deeper into the thread again, because it's been a bit since I checked into the update. But the main argument the person was making was that the game mixes in, or at least at this point in time, it mixed in fantasy tropes with Judaism culture. So using phrases like mana and artifacts and spells. But in Judaism, it strictly says that you're not supposed to do magic. And you play as rabbis and Kabbalists, which are like high advanced scholars of the religion, but you're also implementing magic. So it's a weird, like, are you taking Judaism and trying to morph it into like a fantasy world and combining it in a way, even though it goes against the culture to an aspect, or the historical context of it? But maybe this has changed by this point, but this was the initial argument that just got me thinking about it.
Yeah, I think at that point you may as well make up your own theme, eh? If it's going to be pseudo fantasy, just get rid of the other stuff and make it your own.
Like, or just don't be using those same, like, don't use rabbi, don't use, like, just take like an inspiration from it and go, okay, these were like a rabbi did this sort, like this is how they were represented in the culture. I'm just going to create something similar to it. Don't use rabbi when it's specifically done. Yeah, when magic is not supposed to be.
Especially because like the game itself too is based off of an actual like Jewish folktale based off of a real rabbi that existed.
Yeah, that's a
lot of layers going on in this game.
Oh boy. Okay. Huh. I know. So I was talking with Max before, and he wanted me to bring up the Rising Sun thing that went on. Do you know about it, Keegan?
I briefly looked at it. Shem, do you know? Yeah.
Yeah, about the guy in New Zealand that made up a name on Wikipedia. Yeah. I actually got to meet the guy a couple of years ago. It was quite funny. He was on a board game at all, so he got invited along to our WallyCon convention, and I had to kind of babysit him for 4 hours, which was kind of awkward because he was like 14 or something. Yeah, didn't know what he was doing, but it's funny. Yeah, if those who don't know, he put up a Wikipedia page for this made-up Japanese monster named after himself, kind of, but fake name, but described what it was, what it looked like, and then Simon went and found this information and used it in their game. But from what I understand, they took it to heart and they made a bit of a joke out of it. So.
Oh boy. Yep.
Don't use Wikipedia solely for your research is the least fun.
Yeah.
Quick follow-up, I just want to put it out there, so in case someone does listen to this portion about Golem, I just want to say that I said it. Cranio Creations did say that they're changing it to say fantasy theme and not based off of Jewish culture now. So it's another good thing to see that they take criticism from their consumer as well, and they want to hear their opinions. They're willing to change things. So really good on that.
Yeah.
We were talking about Vikings a bit earlier, and I should have brought up the Feast for Odin. Apparently a lot of that too is very historical, I guess, that the designers looked into it, especially like some of the things like whale bones and how they were used, and apparently they actually they went and did that research and implemented it into the game pretty accurately.
They kind of do that research though is inspiring. That's what I actually think of outside the box a bit as a designer. Like, yeah, when you discover certain things about a culture that you didn't know, it's like, oh, that could be done like that in this game with cards or dice, or like it's so rewarding to do the research, even just for the mechanisms.
Yeah.
I think Uwe Rosenberg is just really good at just doing the research on almost every project he does that puts some type of like historical theme into it. Because I know Odin has it, Fields of Arla. They both have like mini compendiums. It's like, here's the history of the area of Arla, and this is what the whole town's about. Like, and it's just a nice side book if you want to read some historical context to it, which is really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I know. It doesn't really. It's not a real culture, but actually creating its own culture within the game, and does something similar. Everdell, they have like this whole compendium of just like the story of Everdell going into the game, and I kind of like this idea of like whether you actually research and base it off of a culture or just create a culture, but to actually like bring that into a board game. I feel like it ends up drawing me into the game a bit more when you kind of create this world around it rather than just sort of picking a theme and it just sort of's there, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean, doing like world building is just, I find it really fun. I'm not a huge narrative kind of person, but I do enjoy settings. I think more like Star Wars, for example, I don't care if the story sucks. I just want to sit and watch the world like tick over. So lots of people criticize all the latest movies. I'm just like, I don't care. Like, it looks cool and the characters are cool and there's guns and I just want to sit and be immersed in that world. So the same goes for board games for me. It's like, if the world's cool, I'm happy to play the game.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a overly thematic, immersive experience, just the pictures and the stuff's cool enough for me.
Is there a game that has a really strong theme or world that you like living in when you play the game? Is there a favorite?
I mean, I love like the setting of Scythe. That's great. And I wouldn't naturally like lean towards that time period either. So I guess that's something. I enjoy the older time periods, Egyptian kind of stuff. Anything ancient or medieval, or I love. Even more modern, like pirate times is too close to me sometimes. I'm like, that's too guns and that. I want swords and shields. You know.
That's me too. I actually wanted to be a ancient medieval history professor before I went to architecture. I loved ancient Rome and
that was me as a kid too. I was obsessed with ancient Egypt. Like all I would do all day, like in school, was reading like books about the Egyptian gods.
Yeah. That's so fascinating.
How do you feel about Tekenu in its representation of Egypt?
I haven't played that one yet, actually. So,
how about you, Keegan?
I mean, I think I like the idea of like the theme of balancing your fate. I think is really accurate and really good, because that was the whole thing with Egypt. Like when you pass over to the afterlife, your heart gets weighed on a scale against a feather, and if your heart weighs heavier than the feather, it gets eaten by the alligator god. But if it is lighter than the feather, then you get to go to the afterlife and be fine. Whatever. And like I think the game implements that idea really nicely. The god actions, I think they make. Some of them make more sense than others. Like the Anubis action where you take 2 dice to do anything and your dice basic, or you pay off 2 stripes to take a die from anywhere and not put it on your scale. Thematically, in my head, it goes, the die died off and you're not counting it as part of your scales because Anubis is the god of embalming. So that kind of works for me, but some of the other ones I'm not so totally sure if like the gods, like what the god represents and the culture is totally accurate to what they do in the game. But I'm happy for the most part that there's just more Egyptian games getting made because I just love that theme.
Because, okay, so I know with Shem, you might be familiar and understanding the gods of like ancient Rome and Greek. They were a lot more about the everyday life and how they have like an actual role in the people's lives depending on what they were doing. It's been a while since I did Egypt, and I'm trying to think, was Egypt the same way with their gods? And it's more of like I kind of pray to the like an agriculture type god as we're trying to produce goods, and it's meant to be like right now you're trying to like appease them so that this crop yield is good. Are you familiar at all?
I haven't done tons of research on that kind of stuff, but I definitely know that a lot of those older cultures, they had a god for a certain thing, and if that god needed to be appeased for some reason, they would, sacrifice or offer or whatever it was. And I guess that was just because it's the culture they grew up with, and that made sense that needed to happen, I guess. So, but yeah, I think you're right. I think they weren't necessarily like every member of society was completely devoted to a life of prayer or whatever. I think they're just more, there are these gods that are at work in nature, and we have to make sure they don't get pissed off at us or something.
Yeah. And I kind of like bring that up because I'm just trying to think of like, do some of these games that have these ancient gods, pagan gods in them, do they really represent these gods in this way, where rather than just sort of like it's not the Christian god, the Islam god, where it's just like you're just trying to be good to go to this afterlife, but are you actually trying to do something particular in the game for that particular god because you want something beneficial at that time? And if maybe you're doing something that god doesn't like, are you gonna get negatively affected by doing whatever they're...
I guess, I mean, if you zoom right out, I guess you could probably mechanically implement these kind of older gods more easier than like a Judo-Christian or Islamic kind of god, I guess, because yeah, different. I guess we've got more information now as well about current belief systems, rather do about ones that were 3,000 years ago. So yeah, there's more room to kind of wriggle around and make them work for a design, I guess.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. I don't think there's probably too many people that still devote themselves to the Egyptian gods, but like if they do, I think they're not letting you get offended through like some slight misrepresentation. But I mean, if you enjoy that setting, you make a game in that setting, then again, just do your research. Like not that hard. Yeah.
I'm trying to think I was just curious if there was any games that sort of try to do that, and I don't.
I mean, not necessarily like you have to dedicate like your turns to doing things to make a piece of god, but there's a game called Omen. It's a 2-player card game that implements gods from Egypt and Rome. And you get to unlock these god special powers if you do a certain thing, and the powers are somewhat like representative of what they represented back then. And then like Seven Wonders Duel kind of has it, but not really as extreme. It's a very soft mechanic with like the expansion that they have for it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Kinda?
I don't know.
And they're usually treated like in a fantasy setting, right? I think that's how we
Usually,
treat them. So they were like some fantastical, rather than thinking of the person at that time actually having a conviction about their belief. Like we did it for the Viking stuff. I don't touch on any mythological things in our games, but I still treat it like I know that those people had that belief. So things like the Valkyrie and that kind of stuff, like they believed they were going to go to Valhalla, so that you can use that historically because that's how they actually thought.
Yeah.
So
Have that in there almost like as like a subtext throughout the game.
yeah.
That's
Sorry. Yeah. We did it for the RPG that we did for the North Sea stuff as well. We just kind of brief I gave to all the writers was like, there aren't actual ice giants in this world of the North Sea, but they believe there were. That's the kind of angle that we try to sell.
Yeah. Speaking of gods, though, I'm gonna say like this is not super historical context, but Spirit Island I think is a good flip on like the colonialism type games where like you usually play as the person invading a territory, and in this one you play as the gods trying to kill them all off. Like it's a nice twist of that.
Yep, definitely. It's like the anti-Catan game, eh?
Yeah. Or Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the games from like the Puerto Rico era, those games do such a terrible job of representation. But I think we're all learning, and publishers, if they want to exist in today's like market, I guess they have to learn. And there's still some crap coming out, but hopefully the bigger ones will learn more as well. And there's one that came out last year that was called Carp High, I think it was called, which was basically a roll and write with a Maori theme just pasted on top. Like none of the iconography was Maori. It was like, just why was it even a Maori themed game? It had no reason to be. So they got a lot of flack in our local forums.
Oh boy.
There's one that came out a few years back called Gisborne, which is about it's a place in New Zealand. I think maybe the guy who discovered his last name was Gisborne, maybe. But in that game, you defend off wild wolves, and there's no wolves in New Zealand. So
okay.
Things like that, like this.
Interesting.
It's just weird. And I think that's when publishers just paste a theme on. And
Yeah.
like, there's probably wolves. Yeah.
Probably wolves.
Because there's actually no threats in New Zealand. So like, I need some kind of threat.
And what's your, as far as the actual like game mechanics behind the game, how do you feel about it?
I haven't played it. I just saw it on BGG and was like, what the heck? the first paragraph. So, it's just funny.
I would be curious to see like just kind of compile a list that does a good job of doing like integrating these cultures, ones that actually did the research and comparing their just like overall rating, and just I guess you could just use it like a BGG compared to ones that just feel like they're just slap a theme on, and see where that comparison lies in just average rating among those. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I think if those games, I mean, the truth is most people probably wouldn't be fazed by stuff like that. They'll just play it and treat it as a game and that's it. So it's often going to be the internet culture that really pipes up and gets angry at it. So,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be addressed. So I think you might find that those kind of games, if they are good games, might get slightly lower ratings than they would if they'd done their research, maybe. Yeah.
Just a curious thing to, yeah.
As long as publishers and designers are willing to like learn and continue like personal growth in those aspects, I think it's a good trend. Try not to just get like stuck in the no, this is fine type of
Definitely.
Because I know like it makes me think of like all the PAX games like PAX Pamir and PAX Emancipation and all those have like really solid foundation in historical context and like represents the history from that era it's trying to represent really well, except for transhumanity because none of that's happened yet. But but I know also then on the other end, like Shem, like you said, with the internet culture, a lot of people really dislike Phil Eklund's viewpoints on things, like the main designer.
Okay.
He's the main designer of a lot of the PAX games, main lead. His son made transhumanity, but he has some interesting views on colonialism that people are like, you shouldn't probably say that anymore.
Wait, what does he think?
But it comes in like, but just like with Uwe, it comes in the games as like, here's the historical context of the thing. Here's my personal like essay and what I think about it. So it's just a weird. I guess what do you guys think about something like that? If a designer has viewpoints that you don't necessarily agree with on like a personal level, does that sway you from like, I'm just gonna not even look at these games anymore, or does that matter too much to you? Can you separate the designer from the game itself?
I think I try and be tolerant of people with different views. I mean, there's definitely people I work with, if it's like distributors or whatever that I know, I probably would not be good friends with these people. Like, like based on the way they act or they treat other people or whatever it is. So, but then not everyone's that able to like disconnect personal and business, I guess. So I've seen comments about Mandalorian, about a certain star that someone like, I can't stand this person for their personal decisions or whatever, they're what they say on social media. So, but for me, like, well, I'm looking at the character, not the person. And so I guess that's going to be an individual decision, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. It had to be something pretty extreme for me probably to like just say no to a designer to never play their games, I think. Talking like horrible stuff they should be in prison for probably, rather than like just a strange view about certain social systems.
Yeah. Right. And yeah, I'm not a huge, I don't like this cancel culture thing going on. Yeah, I can separate the artist from the person. If the game is solid, the mechanics work, and it's just a good game, I can separate myself from whatever personal viewpoints they have. And yeah, I understand people saying like, no, I don't want to support them.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the actual art and craft behind it, I think is separate from the actual person's personal, especially like if that their thoughts aren't kind of leaking into the game, or like somehow like, let's just, again, we'll put Puerto Rico up for example or something, and you just know that person is very, like, if they were racist or whatever, and you go, oh, okay, this is even worse, and I definitely don't want, like, you're clearly taking your own personal things and bringing it into the game, and it may work mechanically, but now you're just going a little too far. It's a little too, that might be a little too much. But if it's
an agenda they're trying to like push out, then that's I think any agenda I would probably not want to get involved with, even if I was for it personally. I'd be like, if you're trying to push something at me in a game, I just don't want to hear about it personally. Yeah. I think that some games are good at like bringing up a topic that you can discuss. That's fine. Like Endeavour has slavery, but you can abolish it. So it's like, well, there's a topic there to be discussed. It's not saying it's good. It's just it's there, it's in history, and we can talk about it. So some games do it well like that, where it's not him saying, "This is fine, go for it," you know.
Yeah.
It's just opening the discussion. Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Keegan?
I think I'm in the same camp of if the game is solid and there's some personal viewpoints, like both of you said, and like what Shem said, if the person did something they should be in prison for, then yeah, I don't want to touch your stuff. But if it's just like a skewed view of like, if that's what you want to think, okay, but like that I can separate. But also like what you said, if it gets too implemented into like what they're creating, it's no matter, not just board game, but like anything. If it gets too implemented in and like this is definitely just you speaking through something else's like mouthpiece, or you're shoving something in my face, no matter which side it's on, I just don't want to touch it because I feel like I'm getting smothered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any particular games you can think of that have done that? That maybe have like you can feel as too much of an agenda going into it?
No, I mean, like with gender roles and that kind of stuff, I've seen a lot of rule books that explicitly say like when she takes her turn, she does that. But I can see the flip side of saying like, oh, they've had he, his, and him for like the last 50 years, so I understand that. Maybe personally, I think it's maybe pushing too hard. I just prefer to have like neutral pronouns, like they do this, they do that. But I get it. Like you got to push back sometime. To me, doing that's not going too far. But I can see some people might get ticked off at that. Maybe but just take a breath, and it's just a game. So I mean, I can see that it could probably be pushed to the extreme potentially if people wanted to. Yeah,
I agree that maybe putting just completely doing she and just be like, we're not even gonna do he because that it's just been that way this whole time. But that may be, like you said, it may be going like the opposite direction and not really helping the actual problem and wanting like just go the general like the neutral route where everyone is included. Don't just like because then the opposite direction goes to like, well, now you're just pandering to that side fully.
And then you're still excluding people, but the people are non-binary, and then you're excluding a whole other group then, but it's not using they. And they just encompasses everybody. They
are just the player. Like the player does this or
I think like publishers should be, it's just smart business is to try and cater to as many people as possible. Like, and they should try to really stir something up with a niche product. You should try and cater to as many people as possible. That's why we have like the maximum and minimum player counts possible for that game, like 1 to whatever player count, because you want to hit that whole spread. Same goes for anything else in the game. So we try and, if we've got characters in the game, we try and make sure they're 50-50 male-female, and we try and get a split of age groups and skin tones, and depending on the cultural setting, of course, but do our best to try and have representation, not because we're trying to like virtue signal, but just because it makes sense. Like it's just smart. Like, you want people to feel like they can associate with your game. So and it's definitely, I think you can take it too far where it's like you've got to tick every box. But sorry, big bang in my house. But you can. I think there's little things you can do to at least like not tick boxes, but to actually be a normal human being and be good to other people. I don't know.
Monopoly did a nice pushed it way too far edition last year.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Leave it to Monopoly. Leave it to Hasbro. Whoever owns Monopoly.
I'm curious. Okay, so is there a list of games we feel that just did not implement the culture very well? Because we got quite a few that we know, like, they did a good job. This was research, but are there ones we can think of? I don't know that we wanted to go calling out games, but just that.
I was doing the same thing before too. I was trying to look through my shelf and being like, is there anything here that this just doesn't work?
Maybe
I think a lot of the ones I wouldn't notice if I don't know the story or the theme well enough. If it's something I really loved, I might pick it up. But I'm probably not going to be the person who does the research to find out if it's true. Whereas if you're passionate about, I don't know, like Chinese ancient culture, and you play a game in that setting, you're going to know that things stick out. Whereas if me in that position just goes, oh yeah, cool, that looks kind of Asian, being a white guy who likes Asian themes, I'm not going to notice the details that are wrong. So yeah. So it's going to
I was thinking like, how do you feel, Keegan, about Tangaru? I don't know, Shem. I don't know if you played that one.
No, I haven't played it.
I don't know how well I can like comment on it because I'm not part of the culture that it's representing.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I don't know. It's hard. It's because it's supposed to be like, it's Polynesian, right? As a theme.
Yeah. It's
just hard to like comment on it as a white guy when I'm like, I'm not part of the culture. Like, to me, I look at it and I play it. I'm like, this feels like Islander themed because you're going to islands and you're on your boat and you're getting goods and everything. But I don't know it well enough to like complain about it. I feel like it would be. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the biggest issue with those kind of themes is they don't actually specify which like island nation they're representing. They're just like all Polynesians.
Yeah,
it's just like that's enough in itself.
They make kind of like a hint towards that, like we're like all these different civilizations spreading out, but they're all like, we're all the same. They don't make a true distinction that like each one has kind of its own thing going on. Like all the totems, they're all the same, right? They're just different color. The boats are the same. It just felt too unified for like what I think that they're just like that set, like at the time when things were settling and they were spreading out, like there'd be different cultures and each kind of is in their own unique, has their own unique sense. And I'm just like, it did almost feel a little bit like they kind of like went with this theme later on. Like it doesn't feel like it kind of came in from the beginning. Like, yeah, there's this trap, like you're... Go ahead.
I was just say, I've just seen like Moana come out from Disney. Suddenly there's this like flow on of like board games with generic Polynesian themes. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know much, and I don't want to say too much. I can't really complain. It didn't feel like, oh, there was a whole lot of research behind this, or like it could have felt more unique, maybe. I don't know.
It could have had any theme put onto it, and it would have been the same game. Like the theme itself didn't feel like it was. If you strip the theme, didn't feel like it needed to be part of the game to make the game what it is. Like you could have slapped on like some, I don't know, like you could have done some type of like Pilgrim American type thing on that game too, like expanding into the colonies and making new lands and trading with, trading goods between like settlements. Like it could have been any theme at all. Yeah. But this happened at boat and water, and you could have had anything. But
yeah, and all like we all had the same resources that we're working with, and I don't know. So yeah, that was one I was just like, I'm not too. I can't say too much, but it also just didn't feel like like even like. So like we said, Gugong, if you don't know a whole lot, you feel like you're really kind of delving into this culture and this like, there's a very specific part of the history that you're actually playing with, this whole like bribe system, non-bribe system that was going on at the time, and so.
Yeah, that sounds more like something where the designers heard about this bribe thing and gone, that may be a cool, interesting mechanism for a game, and then they've been inspired by it, and that's what it sounds like. Unless they may have discovered it later, but games like where they just paste on a Polynesian theme, that's when you're like, like that's not that's too recent to really like I think do that, because I know lots of Polynesian people who would not want to be represented by some European or North American white guy who thinks it's his property to sell. It's just bad. It looks bad.
Yeah, and I'm feeling maybe that it didn't draw me into the game enough too, because it did. You just kind of like sit there and you go, well, I'm not really delving into this theme a bit more, and I mean, personally, for people who get too drawn into games from theme and design with it, it almost had like this step back layer that it just wasn't. I was a little detached from it. Yeah. Keegan, you look like you're trying to
just avoid those themes of like, if you're not part of the culture, just avoid them. I think as gamers, solely as gamers, we would happily play those themes without a second thought because they look appealing. But yeah, you gotta be smart when it comes to actually making a product. I think as a publisher or designer. Yeah.
Keegan, look.
Garfield games would have definitely had like a multi-theme game by now if this wasn't a thing, you know. But I'd probably be on the national news if I did it. It'd be bad.
Keegan, you look like you were researching something.
No, I was updating something else.
Oh.
Yeah, I was looking a little bit more at. I was trying to look at Bora Bora from Stefan Feld. It's also a Polynesian theme, and I was trying to go in there to see if it was a bit more specific. I mean, it takes place.
That one's very focused on like the gods and things. I think that one, yeah.
Yeah, so it has a bit more going on in it than Tangaru in regards to like trying to represent, but still, it's a white guy making the game. So.
I thought Red Outpost was kind of interesting with I'm pretty sure it was a Russian designer, or I don't know.
I've heard of it, but I haven't played it. Yeah.
Do you recall, Keegan?
Because I didn't get a chance to play it with you guys.
I think it was, and it definitely, like, yeah, it's not supposed to be like in Russia. It's you're creating this new culture, but it's like it's a like it seems like it has this like influence behind it that you like see within the actual art and style of the buildings, and I think that's an interesting way to do it where you can like sorry, I see the cat like have influence from a culture but creating this kind of new world or whatever, right? Like that could be a good way to do it. Like like this new culture is being built up, but like there's clear influence from it, from this other past culture.
That's like the gray era. Like it's like this. That's the sci-fi gray era where like even Star Wars. You're like, well, that's the cowboy, that's the samurai, that's like the characters have been modeled after certain archetypes from our own culture. So that's real gray. I think that.
Okay.
I don't know. We do it as well. We've got a sci-fi series of games, so there's like clearly people who look like they're from Earth, and then the aliens might have slight like a vibe of a certain culture, I guess. I mean, what else do we have to get inspiration from other than what we see around us? So
yeah,
I don't know. I think just do your best not to like make anything too obvious. Or too, like, definitely that's an American like native person. That's not that's not a sci-fi character. There's things like that.
Yeah. Well, to kind of wrap up our episode here a bit, let's do a little segment a little lighter. We got this was a little bit more serious or heavier theme topic that we I guess normally discuss, and I'm sure we do want to do a little bit more of a serious like diversity talk eventually when we get some more kind of like once we get some more guests with some diversity, do like a big round table and just chat and hear just perspectives and what's going on. But
not white male perspectives.
What's that? Not all white male perspectives, as we all are. Yeah. But so yes, so a little lighter. Tell us your current favorite games in your collection right now.
All right. Right now, so I finally picked up Everdell because my friend had everything, all the expansions, and so I thought I'm finally gonna buy my own. So I got just the base game and Valhalla, which those are things that really shone to me. And I've ordered some of the extra card packs from the geek store. What else have we been playing? I've been thrashing Kingdom Rush lately.
Okay.
Interesting, that one, because I played the first scenario solo, and I was honestly just like, is that it? I was kind of like, because I know the designers, and they're like great designers. And then we tried the three-player second scenario. Even then, I was like, there's no tension, there's nothing going, it's easy. And then I thought, okay, one more shot, and played the third scenario 4-player, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, they ramped up in part 3. So if you're playing Kingdom Rush and I'm thinking the first 2 are kind of like, and wait, because it gets way better. I think I've done like 6 now, and it's really good. Like, it ramps up.
Max and some of my friends, we played the first 2 scenarios so far. It's interesting. I'm not a huge like cooperative board gamer, but since I was a kid, I've been playing like tower defense games on like online, so really drawn to that style, and I was like, ooh, I wonder how that's going to be for a board game, and went all in on it, and it's interesting. The first 2 weren't all that difficult. We didn't lose any hearts. It definitely I need to try out the other heroes. Have you played with the blue guy? The soldier, and then like there's another one. But the first 4 it almost felt like there was a certain, like if you're playing 3-player, it felt like there was the 3 that were the best to go with. Right, yeah. I guess. Have you played with the other?
Yes, I've been back for everything. I just thought, I'm not going to spend that much money on a game I'm not sure if I like, so which I now regret, of course. But I got just the basic Knight Fleet thing, it was called. So it came with the base game and then that free spider expansion. So I think I've got 6 characters I can play with, but I use them all. Which I quite like, because when you play a game, like I've done Lord of the Rings, Journey to Middle-earth quite a few times, and you kind of feel, even though you can switch out your roles, you feel like you don't want to. You want to be locked into like, I am this character for like 12 scenarios. Whereas I like how Kingdom Rush, you can just, this scenario, I'll be this character and jump in and out. That's quite cool. That's fun. It gets pretty crazy when like you got like 4 spawn points and 2 exits, and you're like, what stuff do you handle? I think to win one of the, I think it was like level 4 or 5, I actually pinned like 5 of the enemy trays, just they could not move down one channel just to win the game. So there's actually fun decisions that you could make, rather than just like, well, this is the obvious way to cover that card, like, and then this one gets covered, and that's the first round easy. Like that's how it felt in the first 2 games. So it's cool though. I like it.
I'm gonna have to try it with that multiple spawn points, because it was a bit easy.
It's nuts, man.
Which is your favorite character to play as so far?
They're all pretty cool in their own way. At first, I thought the ones that like don't do like Malak's pretty cool, because he stomps and then chucks like a 4 somewhere. That feels powerful, but as you play it more, you realize like Lilith, and like the other fiery one, Ignis, whatever he's called. They're actually quite cool when you have more players. Like Asia's played 2-handed solo now, but so they can be quite useful. And you get their like stronger spells and stuff. Whatever they're called. Pretty good.
I need to keep playing that. We just keep playing a bunch of different games since we're trying to like review, and now that we're going to be doing a Feld month, we got a lot of Feld games to play, and then we're doing a Lacerda month, so we got a lot of big games to play. We've played quite a few of them already, but
it's gonna be busy.
It's gonna be busy. And earlier I wanted to ask, because our group kind of has a varying opinions on Kickstarter. I know you're gonna be doing some, you've done Kickstarter stuff for your games. What is kind of your overall thought of Kickstarter, deluxe pieces within Kickstarter, exclusives, and just like backing games outside of just doing your own Kickstarter projects?
I personally just don't care for it. Like, I wouldn't use it if I didn't have to. Just because it can be a lot of work and a lot of like things can go wrong. And also it adds so much time to your production schedule. Because we broke in like other languages to join us with print runs, so we've got like 8 languages going at the same time, and one person holds up the print run, that kind of stuff. So whereas if it's like say Hadrian's Wall and Rose of Scythia, I pretty much just went, all right, I'll print 3,000, that's done, boom, and then like 4 months later I've got my stock, so it's quick. And but I've noticed that the amount of pre-orders is so much lower than what we get on Kickstarter. So that's where I'm like, well, actually, if we want to keep making games, we need to actually like reach more people and get the games out to more people. So that's why we're going back to Kickstarter for at least for the expansions for West Kingdom. The other thing we're noticing now is that I think people treat it like Xbox achievements, where like they can see it on their account, they've ticked it off, they got that thing. Like there's that side to it. Whereas a pre-order, no one knows you backed it. Yeah, you don't have a record of it other than your email that says you got it. So there's that side too. Yeah, so I've been looking at Game Found, which is the new well, it's not new, but the platform's kind of upgrading to take on Kickstarter type campaigns.
Yeah, are they crowdfunding?
I'm not sure. Yeah, they're doing their own crowdfunding site basically. Yeah, but I don't know. It's going to be hard for you to cross over. Do they have both? Do they? Yeah, I guess it's like social media platforms. Maybe they can survive with multiple, but. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, things like using FOMO for marketing reasons, I really dislike it. It really bugs me. So our kind of story was that we jumped on, would have been like 6 years ago, I guess, with Shipwrights, and I just jumped in, copied what other people were doing. Like we have stretch goals and we check out more and more stuff. And then I realized after like 2 or 3 years that I could pretty much estimate where our campaigns would end by the end of the whole campaign, like money-wise and backer-wise, like within pretty close. Yeah. So if I went into a campaign knowing what we're going to raise, why am I like feeding them like stuff they're going to get anyway? So I made the choice with architects just to go, this is what you get. Yeah. These are the promos you're getting for free. The linen finished box, all the custom wooden pieces done day one. And it still worked. So, but I mean, the thing is like that loses hype. So whereas like people want that like excitement of like getting updates about here's a new thing unlocked and you're now getting this. And they talk to their friends so that gets more exposure. So we just tried to replace that kind of hype with like updates into either strategies within the game or like characters or backstories or do like live streams. And some of the like Paladins we did like, here's some of the design behind the game, like how he designs certain parts of the game, just so people can like get a bit of a more perspective of the game and how it plays, which I think kind of worked. It's hard to know, but we're going to keep using it on and off, I think. Some projects definitely need to go there, like our next game for this Acadians universe will definitely be on there because it's like a big asymmetric dudes on a map game, so it's going to need that kind of platform because we have no idea who's interested in it. So if we print 3,000, we might like only sell 1,000, or we might need 10,000. We just don't know. Yeah. So whereas West Kingdom stuff, we kind of know what we're gonna. Oh, actually, Charles, I don't know this time around, but we have known in the past like roughly what we're gonna need. Yeah. So, I don't know. Well, I thought people were moving away from it, but maybe they're not. You know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. I want to thank you for joining us this week. It was, I know, a little bit more kind of a serious topic, sort of. And we'd love to have you again on for a little more fun, whimsical one maybe sometime. But thank you. And I know you kind of already talked a little bit about some of the stuff coming out, but do you want to plug anything, things coming out, things in the works?
So we've got Hadrian's Wall should be, well, I'm still trying to get the update, but it should be hitting the boats pretty soon. So like February, March for our pre-orders, and then probably April for retail, hopefully. And then we've got, I'm pretty sure late February we'll do a Kickstarter for the City of Crowns expansion for Paladins with a big box for that as well. Okay. So it's going to, if you thought it was brain beating now, it's going to like ruin you for the first few plays.
Okay.
And then we've also got expansions for Architects with a big box and a playmat. Expansion for Viscounts is in the works.
Yes. Okay.
Circadians 2, which is the dudes on a map style game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all asymmetric player powers and stuff, so it's quite cool. Not as far as Root, but not just pasted on player powers. It's very asymmetric.
Awesome.
What else is there? I've got a solo-only game I'm working on, which is kind of like a campaign-driven or non-linear campaign-driven solo game.
Okay.
So that could be towards the end of the year, might be next year. That's going to be kind of like a similar aesthetic to Raiders and Hadrian's Wall, Scythia, Hadrian's Wall.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and then there's another game I'm working on, which I've been working on for like 3 years, with an artist from Weta Workshop, so Paul Tobin. So that's dice drafting, kind of weird, odd game.
Okay.
So I don't know when that's coming out, but it's in the works slowly.
Right.
There's probably something else, but I'll probably forgotten it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll have a
I
look
think
out.
it's the South Trilogy, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
South Trilogy will be next year as well.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool. Well,
Busy for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super looking forward to the West Kingdom ones. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And until next time, everyone, we'll see ya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.